Hey, y'all, let's get back to it. We were talking about how the enemy spends a lot of time trying to get us to focus on things that don't matter, don't have any substance, just to keep us from seeing the blessings and the things that God has planned come to us. One of the stories in the Bible that touched me a lot is in the book of Matthew, the 14th chapter, when Jesus had just found out that John had been beheaded. You know, that was his cousin, and he was trying to go and get alone by himself so he could pray and talk to the Lord. Something that we all need to do, spend more time talking to the Lord. But there were so many people around him that needed him. So he just went on in and he fed the 5,000. Y'all know the story how he took the fish and the loaves and he went on and fed the 5,000. But the story that gets to me the most is he told the disciples, he said, I'm going to go spend some time alone. Y'all go head out and get out there on the boat and meet me on the other side. What's funny to me, Jones, is how the Lord, when he tells you to go somewhere, he already knows what the road ahead is. Now, mind you, these guys have been with Jesus everywhere. They've seen him give the lame, make them walk, the blind sight, feeding all 5,000 men. They said 5,000 men, their children and their wives. So it was way more than 5,000 people. That was a huge miracle with two fish and five loaves, right? And the minute that they got out of God's sight, they got out there in the water, the storm came, and they felt like they was gonna die. They got paranoid and started just panicking. And when they seen the Lord coming, this is the best part to me. When they seen the Lord coming, they didn't even recognize. The scriptures say it was a ghost, right? So that's how we are. We forget when God does something from us. We could be in one room and God say, Lord, I'm going to bless you today with abundance. And we walk in the next room and somebody calls us out a name and we forget what the Lord said that instant. So that's why this message was important to me. It's like God, when he does things for us, we take it for granted by forgetting. You be conscious and tell yourself every morning to remember the good things. It's easy to focus on the negative because this world is falling. There's a lot of brokenness going on, a lot of hurting people, but they're God's people. They need us to remember that God is able and still able to do things in our time for them to see it in their lives. So that's why it's important for us. I say this to remember. So that's why, Jones, that's why it's important to me.
It is true because you get to a point where God has blessed you, you've grown to a point where you're like, man, so much is happening around me. And then sometimes you forget how that cold air can hit you. You forget how hard it was at that one time to pay something, or how hard it was, just to eat, at a certain time. And when everybody looking at you funny, you coming in there with nothing but sandwiches or something like that. And you're like, okay, this is all I got. And then when you get the increase, then you all of a sudden forget, because you've been in an increase for so long, you forget, oh man, I used to just have, what I'm saying, a ham sandwich or a turkey sandwich or something like that. Then, I didn't have the best of car at the time, I had bald tires, and now I got good tires. I'm able to get good tires when I can, and a lot of people do forget that. And, you got to sometimes look at the details of your life, because if you don't look at the details of your life and how you got where you got, how could you ever reach back and grab hold to that? You'd be like, man, yeah, I used to have to put this and this together just so I can provide for my child. I don't care about me, my clothes, what I'm saying, I'll be sufficient. Although I gotta sit there and stitch it up, or I gotta sit there and mix and match clothes, what I'm saying, or have my child make sure they have good clothes so that way they can function in their life and not even know that I'm hurting. It's those things that you put before you. That's really important. So we have to remember those things, because I know I had to remember a lot of different things, and I try to hold to that, because I ain't never been where I've been at in my life before at this point. But I thank God that He did continue to stick with me and lead and guide me to get to where I am today, because I can't give it to nobody but Him. So when people are like, man, you this, you that, and it's all good what they're saying, but I said, man, I have to give it to God, because I don't want any of the credit. I don't deserve the credit, because I'm walking in the light, so He can lead me down the path that He got. So it's very important to remember a lot of different things in your life. Sometimes you got to sit back and just think about it. And you'll know, like, I didn't get here just because somebody just gave me something, or I didn't get here because it fell out the sky or anything like that. But it's very important. You got to remember how God or Jesus came in your life, how Jesus crept around and listened to you, your prayers at night. He listened to your heart, how you want to do for others. You listen to your heart and how you want your family to be right. And you stuck with those prayers. And then now you starting to see some of them turn. And then yet they used to talk about you behind your back and stuff like that. God still was there. Jesus like, hey, stay with it. You know what I'm saying? Because they're going to remember when they went through their stuff and you stood still. They're going to remember, oh man, that person crazy for living for God like that. You know what I'm saying? But yet you stuck with it. And now that you're in the increase, you slightly forgot about it. But then you got to sit down and humble yourself to be like, you know what? I remember when they used to call me crazy. They used to say I was this and talk about me behind my back or be two-faced it, different things like that. I remember what you did, but I stayed praying for you. I stayed praying for my situation so it could turn around. And so, I mean, that's like today's topic, man. You really want to be in the areas where you can remember how you got to where you got because it is important.
That's a good point, Jones. Let me touch on that before we get out of here. You know, Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego, he brought them out of the fire furnace. He brought Daniel out of the lion's den. He brought Lazarus out of that cold grave. Just like he brought you out, brought them out, he can bring somebody else out. Don't forget what the Lord has brought